Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's a regular meeting of the City Council for all meetings on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. If you have a cell phone, if you please either turn it off or put it on vibrate, I'd really appreciate that. And then this evening, we're pleased to have Pastor Marty McLean from Oakland Baptist Church here to lead us in invocation. If you please stand and then remain standing for the pledge of allegiance. Marty, it's yours.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, as Memorial Day draws near, where our thoughts go to the brave men and women who sacrificed their lives for this country. Father, we thank you for the freedoms that we have in this great nation of ours, where the citizens can openly meet with government officials to discuss issues that concern their community. Father, I pray that you impart wisdom upon this meeting tonight. Be with the citizens, the city manager, the mayor, and all members of council as they conduct their business. Through Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council, if we can get a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
It's been moved by Councilman Walker, second by Councilwoman Rivera to approve the agenda as presented. Any further comments? Council, please vote. That's passed unanimously. We have 4 council members present. 3 are otherwise occupied this evening. Thank you. Jeff, we're at the point of recognitions. You want to do employee recognitions?
Sure.
Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, once a month we do like to honor our employees that have reached increments of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years. We do have 4 this month, and we'll start with the 5 years. We have Julie Richburg with the Finance Department. Is Julie here?
And she was a parade walker, too.
She was. We got from the Police Department 10 years, Kayla Rawson. And I have seen the other 2. We have James Little, 15 years for recreation at the library. And most of you know this gentleman, but from Public Works and Utilities, Jerry Gunn, 35 years. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Sir. Come down on the floor for the next 2. Chase Becker, dropped off on the board. Hey, Chase. I want to brag about you a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Chase Kramer from Choctaw High School. He's this month's TASTE Award winner. 2 days left?
Yeah.
Okay. For the month of May. He has a GPA of 4.5 and is ranked 10th in his graduating class. He is a student of the IB, AP, and honors programs. He achieved the Auntie Mitchell Academic Honors Award, has an SAT score of 1370, and is an Indian Scholar. He is president and founder of the Choctaw Chess Club and is the International Baccalaureate Ambassador for incoming freshmen. Chase has served his community by assisting with dorm painting for servicemen at Robert and crop cleanup at Joe Etheridge Stadium. He has work experience as a food runner and a waiter at McGuire's Pub and athletic experience on the soccer team. Congratulations to Chase, who is a summa cum laude graduate, and we look forward to your future achievements. Now, Chase, I'm going to give you the mic and let you tell us what your future plans might be.
So, does it work? Can you hear me? I am going to University of Florida and majoring in mechanical and aerospace engineering. Hopefully one day being able to come back here and work at Eglin Air Force Base, live in Destin, and live the life that we all want to live, you know?
There you go. Well, Chase, wonderful. Sir, this is for you, and with that major, when you graduate, would you come back and see me? My other gig is I work for KBR, and we're an aerospace company, and we're always looking for young engineers.
Can you get a picture of you?
And Elijah Kilpatrick, are you here? Good evening. Let me brag about you a little bit. Elijah is Fort Walton Beach High School's ACE Award winner for this month. He has a GPA of 4.5 and an SAT score of 1340. Elijah is currently a student of AP Calculus, AP US Government, and Introduction to Engineering Design. Elijah's extracurricular achievements include leading Bruner's robotics team to the regionals in the first LEGO League and scoring high against competitors in Bruner Middle School's engineering club. Elijah has athletic experience on the Bruner and Fort Walton Beach High School golf teams. His skill set includes leadership, working with computers, adaptability, multitasking, teamwork, and critical thinking. Elijah has French and English language experience, and his hobbies include building computers, gaming, fishing, golfing, learning, and enjoying television and film. Elijah has work experience as an assistant glazer at Parts on Wheels here in Fort Walton Beach. Elijah is a member of the Fort Walton Beach High School Academic Club and has experience in Bruner Middle School's engineering and robotics clubs. We congratulate Elijah on his achievements and wish him the best in his future endeavors. Tell us a little bit about your future plans.
I plan to major in electrical engineering, but
Yeah, try to talk about it.
I plan to major in electrical engineering, but I'm going to start my career at Northwest Florida and then continue to transfer to UF.
This is for you. Elijah, we're very proud of you. We wish you the very best in all your future endeavors.
Mayor, as you're making your way back up here, I'd like to bring Chief Page up. We just had our new code enforcement officer in the police department started, I believe, yesterday. I'll let Chief Page introduce him.
Fantastic.
Mayor, Council, we probably came about 2 months ago and we worked out a plan for improvement of the downtown CRA area and quality of life enforcement. We came up with a community crime prevention code compliance officer. And I'd like to introduce Rufus Neely. He's the officer that we had selected. He comes to us from CareerSource. At CareerSource, he worked extensively with the homeless population and did career workforce outreach with the homeless. So we think he'd be a good fit for the type of work we're looking for him to do in the downtown area. He's going to be a hybrid between code enforcement and crime prevention primarily. He's also a war veteran, and I'll turn it over so he can introduce himself for a second.
Good afternoon. My name is Rufus Neely. Moved up here from Miami, Florida about 4 years ago. Enjoying the area. Grateful for the chief offering me this position to help Fort Walton become more beautiful than it is right now.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Wow, thank you. Well, that'll bring us to item number 6, presentations. Item 6.1, Commerce and Technology Park Master Plan status presentation. Mr. President.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started here. So I know Councilman Smith actually had some requests for some updates on the CTP master plan. So I put together a fairly brief presentation just to provide some of the background and some of the latest status of that master plan implementation. So I'll get started here. Just for anyone that's not aware, the first map image I want to put on here is actually the boundaries of our CTP, the Commerce and Technology Park. It's on the western portion of our city, kind of surrounding Mary Esther. So moving on to kind of run through the background. I know a lot of the council members that are here today were not involved in that process back then, but the process kicked off in late 2017 as far as the bidding process and all went. And through 2018, we worked through the plan preparation with our consultant. We had this company, Tyndall Oliver Design, that did the plan, worked with us on staff, and the final master plan was adopted by the City Council in May of 2019. Within the plan, it's a good plan. There's a lot of recommendations, a lot of information in that plan. I've kind of summarized, highlighted a lot of the recommendations here, and then I'm going to just run through fairly briefly, and then just kind of go into where we're at to date. So some of the recommendations in there were to look at different character districts. There's a lot of different uses out in the CTP. You have Anchors Hill, Ready, and Lovejoy, streets that make up that area. And you have everything from the tech side of business to industrial, heavy uses, light industrial, and so on. And so we had a recommendation to implement some different kind of character districts that would kind of give preference or design standards and uses to those specific areas within the CTP. There was also a large part for branding and identity. That was part of the process to talk about whether CTP, Commerce and Technology Park, was the best name for it. Maybe the area should be renamed. It was previously our industrial park. It's evolved and changed over the years, so there was some discussion within the master plan about whether it should be, the branding and identity should change moving into the future. We also had some recommendations for land development code standards, kind of going back to the character districts, looking at development standards for setbacks, allowable uses, parking standards, all those types of things, landscaping as well. And then finally on here, looking at the infrastructure as far as pedestrian and bicycle networks. There was a lot of input throughout that process from the stakeholders, from the businesses out there, that they would like to see some increased connectivity to that area. There's a lot of employees that work maybe in surrounding areas of Mary Esther that would love to either walk or bike there, but really couldn't based on the existing infrastructure. So that was something that was covered in the plan. The character district that I mentioned, I did just want to show a map up here quick. Maybe somewhat hard to see, but really the four main different colors that you see up there would be the four character districts that were identified, with the red being along Mary Esther cutoff, the limited area commercial uses that we have there, to the purple, the bluish color, and then the lighter and darker purples, depending on the uses. So those are kind of character districts that were proposed throughout this process. Diving into just a little bit more detail on recommendations for the land development code, as I mentioned somewhat already, was looking at the allowable uses, looking at some of that would require updates and amendments to our city's comprehensive plan. Then also looking at building setbacks, facade requirements, and items such as floor area ratio for building square footage in that area. Some of the other recommendations were for capital improvements, looking at there's two stormwater retention ponds in the area, the north and south ponds. The master plan had some recommendations to actually make those somewhat of a park space around those ponds, not just have them fenced off and kept off from the public, ways that they can provide amenities in the CTP. A lot of the input that we also received from businesses out there was that their employees, a lot of the tech companies, would like to see some outdoor spaces, trails, ways that were accessible to get out of the office or out of the building, on breaks and things throughout the day, with that kind of flexible environment there. So I mentioned the branding and identifying as well as one of the capital improvement recommendations. District-wide street improvements, and that's one of the updates that I'll hit on first here as I'm going into the recommendations. That's an update that in the last few years we have been going after legislative funding to look at some of the street improvements out there. There are some pretty large scale improvements, and so specifically over the last couple of years we've submitted a legislative funding request for street improvements by Hill Avenue and Acre Street. Our consultants identified some improvements that could be made specifically by that intersection and those streets there to improve traffic flow and truck flow off of Anchors onto Hill, north and south. As you may know, especially in the mornings, afternoons, Hill can get backed up, can be very busy with traffic moving north and south, and then kind of some of the knock-on effects onto Anchors. With that, the master plan actually proposes a large roundabout that could actually handle the commercial large truck traffic as well as smaller vehicular traffic. This year, the funding request did make it through the legislature, and it's to the governor now to be considered during his budget approval process. So we're kind of just hanging tight and waiting to see how that works out this year, whether or not it gets funded. Decorative fencing, we have the signage on a couple different access points on Marister Cutoff and Hollywood, kind of identifying the CTP. There were some recommendations to kind of further improve that. If we look at the branding, whether it's the name staying the same or different, ways to really identify that as a commerce and technology park or a other tech park or whatever we want it to be in the future, to really differentiate it from being inside or outside of that area. Enhanced transit styles, that's speaking to the county system and just again that connectivity for employees to be able to get in and out of the CTP. There was a lot of feedback regarding internet, but then also Wi-Fi. If we were to create these spaces, ways that up here I mentioned area-wide Wi-Fi, but there was also a lot needing high-speed internet that's been lacking in the CTP. Some of that is being addressed now as we're seeing some of these new fiber companies moving into the area, but that was one of the recommendations in the plan. And then finally out here was explore the feasibility of a food truck park. We've seen a lot of interest in that all over our city and surrounding cities, county and all. At this time, it's going back a few years ago now, there really weren't many food truck parks, so it was an idea to maybe explore that type of use in the future. The use wasn't or isn't allowed currently in the CTP, but it was something just discussed that I wanted to include in here. So the process to date, as I mentioned, we went through this process. It all kind of came to be the EDC back in 2016 did a study to look at, it was a competitive positioning study to look at where we kind of stand in the market for that type of space for industrial and larger buildings, larger footprints. And following that study by the EDC is when we followed up and kicked off the CTP master plan process. As I mentioned, that was approved back in 2019. Following that approval of that plan, we did bring a comprehensive plan update to the City Council to open up the window for some limited commercial uses in the area. As I mentioned, reviewing uses, we previously didn't allow commercial uses out there, so we actually did have brought that process and it was approved to update the comp plan to allow those limited commercial uses. That then opens us up to be able to amend the land development code. And then also, more recently, last year, Daniel and his team did a resurfacing project along Ready Avenue that they did before they went forward with that project. They did reach out to me and my side in planning to look at the master plan and see if they could incorporate some of the any of our improvements into that resurfacing, to try and kind of work together, keep it all holistic with what we're doing out there. So they did do a resurfacing that they incorporated bike lanes and all to that project. Really, that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's a lot of recommendations and really our next steps, which I didn't include in here, but our next steps would be looking at the land development code specifically to create those character districts and to look at the table of uses and development standards to determine what other uses do we want out there. Looking at the zoning and setbacks, all those land development code standards are really our next step. Really at this point, the reason we haven't moved forward with that is kind of based on strategic priorities for the city. The last couple of years, we've really focused on the downtown and some of the improvements and code changes that we've been working on, and actually will be coming back next month to council for the downtown. So this project has kind of fallen down the priority scale some. If we want to move it back up in the future, we'd be happy to kind of reprioritize and kind of get back moving on it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Any questions from council for Mr. Frasetti?
Well, I for one am glad that you're taking interest in commerce and technology, because at one time, it was just booming, and then just went downhill. One part of it says here, the trees should not block. Well, isn't that the business's responsibility? Or now if the trees are on the easement or on the city property, you know, we build trees, don't we?
Yes. Yep. For sure, yeah, and some of these comments, they were actually comments that we received in stakeholder meetings and feedback that we just received from businesses out there that were, I think, general statements, kind of like that. He said it's not, you know, whether it's us or their responsibility, it's just general comments, you know, when we're looking at even landscape code, you know, not requiring maybe they go up in front of, you know, signage or buildings that would block visibility, so.
And I'm familiar with that hill on Anchor Street and the wastewater that needs to be taken care of. And we need to work on that also.
Chris, are there any food trucks that are out there now working with the local business presence out there to just pull in and do and serve lunch to the employees and then pull back out, you know?
I know we've had some interest in them. I'm not aware of any at the moment. I'll say as far as I've actually been permitted through our office for like BTR. Not to say there's not someone operating without our knowledge out there, but I know we've had some discussions in the past with some. Just not sure if there are at this moment.
Yeah, I thought it might be a business opportunity for them. Anyway,
Sure.
but thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Mead?
If you're looking for input, branding, I'm happy with the branding, but if there's a better idea, the sidewalks, seems like we always have, or not always, seems like at least in the last year's budget, we had money left over in our sidewalk fund, so maybe if there's some priorities or connectivity that are more important than others, we could utilize some of those funds. And then the stormwater ponds, I know it would be one more thing to maintain, but they are fairly unsightly the way they are, so.
And for sure, and I didn't go into too much detail on there, but I was speaking with Daniel yesterday too, and they did some evaluation of those ponds also in the last couple of years here, and they did, you know, find some items that would require additional right-of-way property acquisition and things like that to you know, make some improvements there. More on the functioning side versus the aesthetic side, but we can definitely work together on that.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, Mr. Berry, oh, okay.
Well, is that part of that Hill and Anchor Street legislation that is before the governor now? That has to do with the stormwater?
It is for the road, the street specifically. The request that's in right now is for the design phase to start that process, so, for the streets.
Mr. Walker?
Yeah, you had mentioned the fiber or the line 5 over there as part of what's going on in Fort Walton Beach. Is fiber already there, or is it going in?
And I think it's on its way out there.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, and yeah, thank you. Oh, I was going to say thank you for putting the presentation in the package. It makes it easier to read here than up there for me.
Yep, for sure.
Anyway.
Yep, you're welcome.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone from the audience have questions for Mr. Presenter?
Hello, Ross Smith. I think, you know, if I remember back, it was actually on a motion made by Mr. Mead back to set up the stakeholders group at the for the Commerce Technology Park, and we set one up. We had several meetings, but it kind of went away and disappeared. I think staff did what they wanted to do. And, you know, since we have a completely different staff now and everything, I think we need to revisit this whole program and see what, you know, what's really important out there. I know what's important to me is, you know, my parking lot, every time my parking lot falls in, they come out and patch the storm drain and they say, well, you know, it's 70 years old, it's rusted out, you know, one day we'll fix it, but, you know, just keep coming and patching it, and they keep paving the roads, and this is a problem I got all around town. They keep, rather than going down to the curbs, they keep paving up over the curbs. So, you know, my tenants have a great big hump to get in and out of their place. They need to go in and mill the roads down. And so before we start, you know, putting in crosswalks and, you know, all this beautification stuff, let's figure out what we need to do to fix the infrastructure out there. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Sharon Canary. I just have a question, and maybe this is redundant, and I apologize in advance. if you're doing all this beautification, is there going to be an architectural review of the new construction? And I'm asking because I can envision
Sure. So we don't,
somebody building something cheap in a Quonset hut or something. you
sure.
know?
So we don't have any design standards in place for the CTP. It
Is
is.
there going to be?
There's not a proposal, no. It's not a proposal to have design standards within the CTP. What we were talking about specifically would be just different types of uses that are allowed. So like today, there's maybe only certain types of industrial uses. It would be opening up or changing what's allowed out there, not going into the actual design of and appearance, the architectural aesthetics of those buildings, which is not what we're proposing out there.
Okay, we're trying to beautify the city. I'd like to propose that we have an architectural review.
Yeah, I think what Mr. Fassetti, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we want to start with the basics and get the basics taken care of, like the roads and sidewalks and all that, and then come in with the aesthetics later. But let's take care of the stormwater.
Oh,
Is that correct?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm just thinking if it's on the drawing board somewhere to have something, you know, instead of just concrete prison blocks. You know, that's all I was saying. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd like to ask Chris a question after hearing Rob, Mr. Smith speak. Not familiar with the problems that he's expressed, but he's clearly got some there, and I understand legislative funding has been put in place for what sounds like it's going to be a beautification on the right-of-way. Is that correct?
Beautification, but also, I mean, infrastructure as far as improvement of traffic flow, you know, for that area there.
What are the plans or any money set aside for the issue that he's talking about of the 70-year-old pipe falling in and?
I don't know where.
Say I'm not familiar with it personally.
Blake Avenue.
So.
Maybe they've been out half a dozen times and fixed my parking lot.
Yeah, and so that seems like, you know, it would be something, I mean, I don't know if it's affecting other property owners over there as well, but.
I can speak with Daniel and we can see what's going on with it for sure.
Sure, I'd love to hear what might be possible for those type of, if that problem exists, how big is it, how long does it go, and how big of a project would it be, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have no idea how long those 70-year-old pipes run.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Mead?
Mr. President, I'd also like, if you're willing to create bring back the old stakeholders group. It seems that it would be a nice way to update the study without having to have another $80,000 study, and I'm not being sarcastic when I say that, but without having to have a new study to bring it up to date. Maybe if we could bring those former members and any new members that would be willing to give us their input on, you know, because we're not, or at least I'm not there every day. So if we could get their input on what we need to focus on and how we can make it better, I think that'd be, from my perspective, that'd be a great way to move forward.
Absolutely, yeah, and just the brief kind of background or latest updates on that was following the implementation, well, the approval of the plan. We did have a few stakeholder meetings after that, actually into early 2020. And we had a meeting about a month before COVID hit, and that was the last stakeholder meeting we had at that time in 2019 when the plan was approved, and into 2020. It was on the strategic priorities list as one of the top priorities, so we're working on it, but then it kind of fell down that list, so we just, you know, put the meetings on hold at that time. You know, no other reason than that. We'd be happy to, you know, kind of kick it back up and get it back going, because we did have a great group. We were getting 50, 60 plus people there at those meetings, and that last meeting we did have actually had a similar presentation to, you know, this as far as what recommendations were in there, and we were actually going to start prioritizing. You know, it's a pretty lengthy list of improvements and ideas in there, and we were going to try to start prioritizing, you know, where to start with all of that. So.
Nice, thank you.
I appreciate you looking, like you said, we've been focusing around downtown and the landing and all that for so long that I noticed the rest of our city needs help. And I would like to be present at some of your stakeholders if you allow us to be, you know, so to educate myself on it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Anyone else? All right, we're going to move on to item 7, the consent agenda. Get a motion.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Walker, second by Councilwoman DeBerry to approve the consent agenda as presented. Further comment? Sir? Further comment? Comments, Marie? Council, please vote. So it's passed unanimously. Thank you, Council. That'll bring us to item 8, Mayor and Council comments. And Mr. Bean, looks like you're first.
I'll save mine for after the meeting.
Okay, very good. Mr. Smith?
Oh, wasn't even ready. Half the guys aren't here, and I hope they get the butt kicked in the championship game because they're playing in Shalimar, not in Fort Walton. But I don't have any comments yet right now, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
I'll save mine for the final.
All right, Mr. Berry.
Hey, I'd like to thank the Fort Walton Beach staff, the city staff, the Bullets Parade, and all you've done for this past week. It was a very, very good turnout. I heard a lot of good comments, and then the health fair that you had, I heard a lot of good comments there too. Keep doing that. Keep doing that. I appreciate that. And the recreation center and pickleball courts. I live in that neighborhood. They are booming, let me tell you. and we want more. It gives me chills just thinking about it. So thank you.
I just got I do want to thank the police department and our fire department for helping defend me Friday night at Billy Gold Legs. I was victorious Friday night, and the police was able to. They hauled off Billy and his queen both in the Humvee. That was a wonderful thing to see. Saturday, unfortunately, I had the women's club defending me. Wonderful group of ladies. As I said, women's club has been in this community for 102 years. They were here when it was Camp Baldwin. They originally got together to chase cows off the street and pigs from under the schoolhouse because the pigs were bringing fleas and ticks to the students. But they did what they had to do then, and they've since morphed into a wonderful organization that does a lot of beautification, a lot of civic things, especially with working with children. But they volunteered to defend me, and I was proud to have them as my defenders. But the problem was, Billy Bowleg shows up, and he brings an Elvis impersonator. And when Elvis started to sing, all my ladies swooped over Elvis, and it was over.
You were shocked over, huh?
But we had a lot of fun, and Billy got the key to the city on Saturday, and we had a wonderful parade last night. Again, thanks to the police department for the excellent coverage during that parade. I saw an officer about every 100 yards. I didn't know we had so many officers, Chief Page, so many reservists that came out and helped. It was fabulous. Thank you so much. And my last compliment is, as the community is healing from the Robert Fortson, Airman Fortson's death, the police department has played a big role in that. Chief Page gave a wonderful presentation at the Candlelight Vigil. I really appreciated that. We've got another meeting coming up out at Probert, a kind of a town hall meeting. It'll be later this week. And I think the healing process has begun, but we're going to continue to go down that road. So thank you everybody for their attention there. And with that, I'm going to open the meeting for public comments. If anybody wants to come forward, items not on the agenda, and you can speak for up to 5 minutes. All right. Seeing none, we're going to go to item 10. Ordinances on first reading. 10.1, 2146. Ordinance amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 5, accessory uses and structures. Mr. Frasetti.
Okay, it's ordinance 2146, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 5 of the Land Development Code for supplemental standards for storage buildings, storage sheds, greenhouses, and detached garages or carports, providing for authority, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. This is first reading.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. So this is an item, from time to time we do bring LDC amendments for topics that we maybe get questioned on or become more regular that we see popping up around the city. And so this item here is regarding the use of shipping containers at storage buildings. Something I think we've probably all seen more and more of in the last few years. And currently we don't have any standards for them. We do have accessory structure standards in the code for sheds, detached storage structures, but they don't address shipping containers in any way. So what we've done here We've reviewed a lot of surrounding jurisdictions and even across the state and other places to look at some standards and really kind of put together a list of development standards for using shipping containers for storage buildings that we have here, and I'm kind of going to run through it similar to as we explained during the LPA meeting. The LPA did recommend approval of this ordinance, but they did recommend removing a few of the items, the specific numbered items from it. What we did here in the ordinance, basically what we defined is we've defined what shipping containers are, and that more or less you can have a single up to one shipping container on your property as an accessory structure. And from there we have 13 items in the code that in our review development, me and my staff felt, all 13 of these are fine. However, if the council or if the LPA wanted to look at removing any of these specific numbered items, we're happy to do so. So what I just wanted to note specifically in here, there is one of the items, the requirements that we put in here is that shipping containers visible from a right-of-way shall be screened with site-obscuring fencing or landscaping. Basically, if you get a shipping container in your backyard, you need to have a fence or a landscape hedge or something to kind of just shield that unfinished container from view. The LPA did recommend removing that. Their general comments were they felt that they should be treated the same as any other shed, any other accessory structure, and we don't require a regular shed to be screened from view, so they didn't feel that it should be here either. The next one is that shipping containers are prohibited within our CRA. That was something specifically from our CRA administrator, felt that if we're trying to go for the beautification and improvement, maybe the CRA is not the best place to allow shipping containers to be used as accessory structures. The LPA did recommend removing that as well. There was item number 10, which shipping containers shall not be used as a habitable space or rented out for any use. The LPA recommended just changing it basically to say that shipping containers shall not be used for a commercial use. The habitable space is already identified through our accessory dwelling standards and residential standards, so they did recommend changing that. And then lastly, there was a statement in number 11, it was mattresses or beds shall not be stored or located within a shipping container. The LPA also recommended removing that. The intent of that, I was actually working with our attorney, Jeff Burns, on it, was that in other cities, they've seen people maybe put beds in them and then people are sleeping in them and it kind of snowballs there. So we figured, we put the language in here, it's clear. Someone can't say, oh no, I'm just storing my beds in there, and then it's like, well, why is there a nightstand and a couch and everything else? So that's why that was in there, but the LPA felt that it really wasn't needed either. So I'm happy to go through this with you, but really what we're trying to do is just set some standards for using shipping containers, like I said, as accessory structures. We have language in here saying that you can't have more than one on your property, like I mentioned. They can't be located within any required off-street parking spaces, driveways, fire lanes, pedestrian facilities, anything that can't block right of way, can't block sidewalks. They have to be, on your property. They can't be located in your front yard, so they can't be in the front yard. They have to be in good condition, no graffiti, damage, corrosion, things that we can enforce through code enforcement. It's kind of what that's in there. They can't be hooked up to any utilities. Again, you can't be turning this into a habitable space or some type of accessory dwelling or something like that. It's only used for storage. And then there was the last one, at number 13, it talks about shipping container shall be installed so that the longer side of the shipping container lies flat against its foundation. There was some discussion in LPA against that, basically saying, what are you saying in there? The question, what do you mean? Basically, it needs to be laying down. It can't be standing upright from an end, which I don't know that I've ever seen one in a reasonable use in a neighborhood being used for storage that's standing up. But that was language that also came from Mr. Burns, our attorney. So really, just have this here for consideration on first reading. If you're would like to keep it as is or remove any of those, we'd be able to make changes and bring it back as amended.
Ms. Perry?
I was driving around south of Hollywood area, southeast area there, Broad Street, Chicago, and I saw two nice shipping containers in a yard. They had landscaping, not plants, but boards around there. But there's two. You know, not, there'll be kind of, not adjacent, but offset each other. I thought did you say that you only have one in a yard?
We're proposing it to be one, a max of one per yard, per property, is what we're proposing. That can be changed, but that is what we're proposing, just one per
Because I
property.
saw that. Well, one good thing about, they won't be flying around like the sheds are with the hurricanes, like I saw my shed back in the 1975 hurricane, the leaves go out like that, So at least that, and they were nice and clean, but there's two of them here.
Sure. And I will note, this doesn't include using them to make them a commercial business, an accessory dwelling, and to make them a habitable space would still be allowed. We've seen them as accessory dwellings, or commercial restaurants and businesses that use shipping containers. This would not affect any of that. That would still be allowed, provided it meets building code. This would just be if you're using it for storage, that you want to drop it off in your yard and put stuff in it.
Other comments from council? Mr. Smith?
I see, like you said, the LPA wanted to take out, prevent it from being, I guess number 6 being made to be screened shipping containers from visible right away. Instead of putting that in there, would it be better to require a finished facade on the shipping container?
We could absolutely. We've seen it, on ones that make habitable spaces out of them, they do finish facades on
Yeah,
it.
they look really good.
So
I know the one she's talking about on Chicago, it looks really good.
it does, yeah. We could certainly
Okay.
add language like that instead.
Other comments?
Yeah, just making sure I need to figure it out. The LPA recommends, the board decided to recommend the city council approve the proposed amendments to chapter 5 pending removal of subsections 6, 7, and 11. So then I come down to 6, 7, and 11. Is that what I should do?
Yes.
Come down to 6, 7, and 11 of F. So they're saying remove 6, 7, and 11.
Yes.
So that would mean that they don't want them to, the LPA doesn't want them to have a facade on it.
Right. Well, they don't want to be screened. They didn't go into the facade
Or
requirement, but
screened,
but
with-
yes.
okay, and then
Yes.
7, okay, so they're saying then that they do want to allow shipping containers in the CRA.
Yes.
And 11, mattresses or beds shall not be stored or located within a shipping container.
That was going into, are we going to be asking to look in someone's shipping container or what?
Someone's
That's,
backyard, right.
don't want to maybe go down that rabbit hole. So,
What was their discussion on, why didn't they like the, in the CRA? Why did they not like them prohibited in the CRA?
I believe it was really just because they're, don't want to exclude that one area of the city. City is a fairly large area, and if we're going to allow them throughout the city, let's just allow them. If someone wants it in their backyard, let's just allow them throughout the entire city.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No, go ahead.
Perhaps we could, regarding the facade or fencing, we could just put a facade or fencing and leave both in there. But
Certainly, yes. Do that.
And then with the mattresses, it seems like that would help with enforcement, so I don't see any harm with leaving, we could add commercial, but commercial purposes including mattresses and couches or whatever. But
For sure.
I would hope that we can leave that in there.
Yeah, we're fine with it. Like I said, those were the LPA's recommendations, and we're happy to go and accommodate whichever direction the council wants to go with those. But
I mean, they're well taken and I appreciate them, but I'm asking
Sure.
you because you're the one that has to
absolutely.
enforce
Yeah,
this. And
yes.
so
Yeah, I mean, if it's in there, the clearer it is, the easier it is to enforce. So.
would you agree with that?
Yes,
Okay.
of course, you're not bound by the recommendation.
Right.
Mr. Berry?
I see here that the shipping containers shall not be hooked up to any water or sewer utility or septic tank system. I'm looking to see, how about electricity?
We didn't include that in here. We could, we.
I don't want to encourage.
Right. So. Yeah, we could add electrical just to that if you'd like.
People don't put AC in them, right?
They will to keep the
I was saying you can-
moisture out if
you
they're
can-
storing stuff in there. They'll put
So,
an AC unit in.
right. So.
Yeah, so they might want the AC.
Right. You may
for
want to
them.
leave that for dehumidifying and all
Or
that.
lighting in it.
True. So,
Chris, I had a concerned citizen contact me at first reading, first glance, it appeared as though that it might, affect greenhouses, and that was a concern over there. Nothing
No.
appears changing regarding greenhouses. Greenhouses can still have what they've always
Correct.
had.
yes, this is specific to those metal shipping containers. Nothing else, for greenhouses or anything like that.
I mean, the greenhouses are addressed in here, there's just no change.
Correct. They're already
to what
accessory
was already-
structures and
Yeah.
meet the current rules. Nothing's being changed with them.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Council, may we get a motion?
Can I ask you a question? You guys public?
Go ahead, sir.
Chris, it doesn't, I can't see where it says in here with zoning districts, this is applicable to. I'm just concerned that it doesn't apply in the CPT, because I know that, sure, businesses out there are using them for storage.
Let me actually pull it up on my phone quick because we didn't have it listed in here.
Maybe it does say that under C. Is it just residential?
So it is our residential and mixed use zoning district. I know it's one of those too.
Sorry.
That's good.
Anyone else from the public wish to comment on this? Go ahead.
So here it says only one per resident. I just lost it. And so I was saying two is on Chicago. You said, Mr. Smith, but you said there's two on Chicago. The street.
I know I don't know if there's a second one on that property, but regardless of whether there was or there isn't, this thing isn't in play yet, so it wouldn't affect that.
Because I saw two, they weren't lined up. They were kind of,
So if anybody put anything in before this gets in, then they're grandfathered in, is my assumption.
Yes.
oh, okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
Chris, and maybe Rob, maybe I'm missing it, but A there says detached garages, storage building, storage head shipping containers in the CG and MB zoning district. So Rob, is that CG, is that different than CTP?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Yeah, and that talks about the finished facade, which is over 600 square feet. Typically, you're not going to have that. Typically, they're not going to be 600 square feet, but we just wanted to include that in here just to cover our bases.
And so reading that, storage building, storage sheds, detached garages in those have always had to have, if they were greater than 600 feet, they had to have a brick veneer.
Yes.
Or similar, stone, stucco, whatever.
Yes.
Can we craft a motion out of all that?
I'm trying to pull the comments and the.
I know, it's not
staff
easy.
proposal.
So I guess my question would be, is outside of 6, which is probably the one for me that would require a screen or a finished facade is probably what I would prefer. Is there anything in 7, 11, or 10 that anybody up here would want to change?
I would like to include mattresses or commercial purposes, just to be as broad as possible for making sure they're not rental units.
I missed that first part there, Mr. Mead. Was it item 10? Is that what you were referencing?
I'm looking for the number.
Okay, because that's one that,
The mattresses are what they want to do.
Mattresses is 11, but
10 and 11.
10 deals with not using them as habitable space, and 11 says no mattresses or beds can be stored.
Right, so I was looking at board members' codes discussions, subject to removal 6, 7, and 11, but from section F, and to change the proposed language of subsection 10 to only restrict commercial use, only restrict commercial use. So I'm having trouble understanding exactly what that means, I guess. What does that mean when, so shipping containers shall not be used as habitable space or rented out for any use. Just reading that at the first glance, it means for commercial use. But you could use it in residential use, not commercial?
It could be taken to mean that, yes. We have the accessory dwelling section in chapter 5 that if someone wanted to use shipping containers as an accessory dwelling, they go through the residential building code and they could use a shipping container, but it would be a finished facade like the one in Chicago that, you know, it's not a, it wouldn't fall into these rules, it would then fall into those rules. So I think maybe some of that was, the intent was like, well, we do allow those as an accessory dwelling if it meets the building code. So let's take it out here so that we don't sound like we're prohibiting it.
You could say,
Yeah.
you could keep it, intend not to be used for the habitable space, but then say except as provided by the
Yes,
ADU
we could.
section.
Mhm.
To be
Yes.
clear.
Yep.
If council wanted to go
Yeah.
that route.
Yeah.
It's interesting that shipping containers are allowed to be used as accessory dwellings.
Mhm.
And then I think the other remaining issue would be the CRA and whether or not our motion would adopt the prohibition within the CRA or not. And I don't know that we ever.
Well, they wanted that removed, didn't they?
They wanted that one out.
To include it. So I'll make a motion.
Okay, we'll listen closely.
Okay. I move we adopt staff's recommendation. I believe paragraph 6, which is the visible from the right of way, we keep that in there, but include the ability to put a facade on there. Number 7, I recommend that we remove that so that they can have them both here and in the CRA, and we can discuss that in a moment if I'm wrong. And then part of my motion is that paragraph 11 stays in, and if we need to add additional language to enhance it further that says that it can't be used for any commercial or residential occupation purposes, subject to other provisions, that would be my motion.
The only question I have is number 10.
Yes, ma'am.
Which says shipping containers shall not be used as habitable space or rented out for any use. Do you want to put the commercial there?
I thought the recommendation was for that would be great. I think it accomplishes the same thing, whichever paragraph you prefer.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Meade and seconded by Councilman Smith to go with the recommendation as printed, staff recommendation, keeping number 6 with the facade, removing item 7, and paragraph 11 remains. That's what I got for my notes. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. Further comment? Council, please vote. It does pass 4-0. Thank you, Council.
We'll make those changes. So at second reading, you can see exactly what you all recommended. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Brings us to item 11, ordinances on second reading. 11.1, 2143 ordinance, charter amendment number 1, compensations to elected officials. Ms. Cobb.
Okay, ordinance 2143, an ordinance of the city of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending the city charter to create a new section titled Prohibition of Compensation to Elected Officials, providing for a referendum on the charter amendment, providing for a ballot question, providing for a vote at the November 5th, 2024 election on whether to prohibit compensation and financial benefit to elected officials, providing for coordination with the supervisor of elections, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date. This is second reading, and there are not changes to this ordinance since first reading.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cobb. Comments from council? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Council, it's up to you for a motion.
Move ordinance 2143 for approval.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Smith, second by Councilman Walker to approve ordinance 2143, Charter Amendment Number 1, compensation to elected officials for approval. Further comment? Yes, ma'am.
Where it says, shall receive any compensation including without limitation salary, how about the meetings that we go to, the city pays, like the League of Cities?
So if you just read down a little bit, it says the prohibition does not preclude reimbursement for expenses actually incurred in the performance of their duties. So if that was a...
Does that cover that?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from council? Anyone from the public wish to speak? Council, please vote. Does pass 4-0. Brings us to item 11.2, 2144, ordinance charter amendment number 2, special assessments. Ms. Kopp.
Okay, ordinance 2144, an ordinance of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending the city charter to create a new section titled Special Assessment Petition, providing for a referendum on the charter amendment, providing for a ballot question, providing for a vote at the November 5th, 2024 election on whether to establish petition requirement for levying special assessments in the City of Fort Walton Beach, subject to certain exceptions as provided in the charter, providing for coordination with the supervisor of elections, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date. This is second reading, and there have been no changes to this ordinance.
Thank you, ma'am. Comments from council on this one? Anyone from the public wish to speak? Council, may we get a motion?
Mayor, motion to approve ordinance 2144.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilwoman DeBerry to approve 2144 ordinance charter 2 amendment special assessments. Further comment? Council, please vote. Does pass 4-0. Thank you, Council. Item 11.3, 2145, ordinance charter amendment number 3, limitation on budget increases. Ms. Kopp.
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance 2145, an ordinance of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending the city charter to create a new section titled Limitation on Budget Expenditures, providing for a referendum on the charter amendment, providing for a ballot question, providing for a vote at the November 5th, 2024 election on whether to establish a limitation on budget expenditures in the City of Fort Walton Beach, subject to certain exceptions as provided in the charter, providing for coordination with the supervisor of elections, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date. This is second reading. There have been a couple of changes to this ordinance since first reading. The budget amendment, charter amendment has been revised, but still furthers the goal of limiting spending subject to the exceptions listed in the ordinance as was set forth in the original amendment. The proposed amendment now places a limitation on personnel services in all funds and operating expenditures only in the general fund. It does still exclude emergencies, natural disasters, gifts, grants, and special assessment funds. Also, capital projects would only be limited when reserves are not available or if not financeable. Do you
Thank you,
have any
ma'am.
questions?
Thank you,
City
ma'am.
manager and I are here to answer them.
Okay. Any questions from council for this one? Mr. Meade.
And this is the same version that was approved by the watch group who I understand represents the petitioners.
Correct. And if you saw the email from a representative from the watch group today, they did indicate their support for this.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Anyone from the public wish to speak? Council, may we get a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve ordinance 2145.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilwoman DeBerry to approve ordinance 2145, charter amendment number 3, limitation on budget increases. Further comment?
Yes, I want to thank Nicole, who's not here, obviously Jeff and Danny, big time, from the last meeting till now, getting this thing together and massaging it more. and getting some things to the watch group so we could work together to get it kind of where it is now, to where, it's tolerable for both sides no matter what happens. So I appreciate that finally coming together and then getting to the point to where it is. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you. Council, please vote. Does pass 4-0. Thank you, Council. Brings us to item 12, action and direction discussion. Item 12.1, recycling services agreement with Waste Management Recycle America, LLC for recycling services. Mr. Payne.
Mayor and Council, Daniel Payne, Public Works Utility Services Director. Tonight in front of you, you have an item related to the city's recycling. We're excited about the new investment in the area. Just to give you a little background, I know there's a lengthy background on there. We wanted to include as much information as possible. But currently, as I speak, the city's ultimate final destination for its recycling material is the ECOA's MRF that's located outside of Cantonment in Pensacola. The recyclables are picked up curbside, brought to the Okaloosa County Transfer Station, and then hauled over to ECOA's facility in Pensacola. The city did, before that, have a hauler that we had at the transfer station that we used that took the recyclables, but basically to the same destination, which is the ECOA. That was the closest option. That was really the only option. About a year and a half ago, Waste Management informed us that they were looking to invest in the area, and they've probably been frustrated with some of the same things that we've experienced with the ECOA facility. While it was a great help, a lot of times it was down, and we'd have to scramble and make other arrangements, places to take and haul our recyclable material to. Some of you attended the groundbreaking. I think, Mayor, you were on that end. It's over off Ready Avenue. There's a new material recycling facility that's just about to be open. The city is proposing to be one of the customers. The Okaloosa County had their agreement pretty much, same thing that we had versus, basically except a little bit of different language, the city of Niceville, and then because we had one meeting in May, we're kind of like following right through there. The agreement that's proposed on here for our recycling material effectively gets rid of the two largest components that we have that affects our fee, and that's distance and then a middleman hauler. So with us being able to take our recycling facilities, it would go directly from your curb straight to that facility. We wouldn't have to deal with the middleman, and we don't have to deal with distance other than going to the industrial park. Highlights of that agreement that's proposed, that's in the backup that you see, it's effectively a 39-month term, 36 months plus the 3 months that we're basically proposing to start here in July. The maximum increase in there per year is 5% on the ceiling or 2% on the floor. It's a CPI in between. So it's a CPI rate, but it's capped at 5% on the top side, and on the bottom side, 2%. There's a very important, I think probably one of the most important things that we have in there is public education. We're able to access some of the resources that we have not been able to have in our previous agreement. Being with Waste Management, they have a lot more resources, obviously, than the city or municipality. I like to say, we can draw some pretty nice stick figures and share some information, but to really tap into some of the marketing and the educational materials that we need to change some behaviors for recycling, we have full access to, and that was a big point in our discussion. The city, Okaloosa County, city of Niceville, we all basically were reviewing the same document and put forth all our comments together to get it, so our agreements are basically the same on that side. The fee breakup is a little different than what we've had before. Usually we paid a rate, and we collected it, you know, and then the rate that was charged just like a flat fee. Right now, what was proposed is a $60 flat fee for a break-in period that we'll find out. Basically, in that break-in period for the first 6 months, we'll find out basically how good of the material that we have what we're giving them, right? Is because the allocation of the risk is moving back to us as opposed to facility. That's the model kind of nationwide that's going to make this thing successful. You know, we all as residents and customers are going to have skin in the game, and that's going to affect our rates. So coupling that with the education, you know, the resource stuff that we're tapping into and that type of thing is going to pay dividends for us. It is a little bit different, but it's basically common nationwide through recycling facilities that we have. Oglesby County's agreement was passed the 1st of May, and Niceville's was passed last week. You'll see in the back, we have a fee breakdown, kind of to just, you know, show you kind of where the recycling market and stuff that we've had as a city has been going. You know, it started with a substantial savings, then it was almost like a break even. Now we're getting a little bit more savings. I think it's important to say right now, we are paying, because of the last minute rate increases that we got mid-year from ECUA, we are paying over $90 a ton, which is $20 more than garbage at this present time. That's not what is budgeted because we had it. We chose, you know, basically not to pass that on to the customers because we knew this facility was coming online. So we're eating that cost on that side because, you know, in a 6-month time period that we had, you know, it just made sense just to not mess with the rate on that side. This agreement that we have will go down to $60. That's a saving of $30 right there. And we hope to see some bigger savings in the future if we can get some of our material under wraps and education material going out. It's a big item. There's lots of resources. I'm sure there's lots of questions. I'm here as well as representatives from Waste Management. If you have any questions, you know, we have.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions from council? Mr. Berry?
When you say education, are you talking about the material that is put in the recycling bin, the yellow top recycling bin? Is that what you're talking about, educating?
Yeah, educating the public on, you know, what should go in there, what should not go in there. You know, we've always done some here at the city, but really, you know, with the way this agreement has, with the way that we're able to do contracted audits of our material down to the truck number, down to the route, you know, we'll be able to basically focus on that type of stuff. We had one already, just to kind of see where we're at, you know, and you could tell from there, okay, there's lots of bagged recyclables. That's not going to fly in our next one. You know, we were low on, I say aluminum steel cans. So like right then and there, it just gives you kind of a small snippet of some of the educational promotional stuff that we need. No bag trash, right? No bagged recyclables because they'll get thrown away. But that message needs to get out, and then they're going to help us with that. With a lot of co-branded stuff, media, graphics, things like that.
Well, I still have the picture on the top of my container of what's acceptable and not acceptable. Is it going to change?
I would think the only thing that changed is the previous facility in Pensacola, ECUAs, allowed us to have bagged recyclable material. Basically, if you had a trash bag full of recyclable material, they wouldn't penalize us for it, but that has posed lots of problems, and in this agreement, we're going to have to get away from that habit. That's probably the biggest habit item.
So they don't want it bagged, they want it all.
Just loose, yes, ma'am.
Oh, I thought it was going to favor so it wouldn't just splatter all over the street.
Well, nothing should splatter in there either. That's probably the other thing.
Because I've seen that.
Yes.
Okay.
Just for recycling.
Mr. Walker?
And maybe it's in here, I apologize if I missed it, but it's on Ready Avenue, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And it's in city limits?
Yes.
And I saw the discussion here between the county and Niceville, they just approved is there stuff going there?
Yes, two different kind of setups. We do our own collection from the curb over. Waste Management handles franchise the south side of the county. So, you know, they will be they're picking up and going over there as well.
They're picking now, Waste Management's has been or will be picking up recyclables, curbside?
For non-city residents in Niceville, yeah.
City residents is still picked up by city
Correct.
trucks.
And that truck will go directly to this facility.
And the county and Niceville stuff's going over there as well, however it gets there,
Yes.
just obviously not through our trucks.
Correct.
What site did they develop on, or what was it previously?
It was, I don't know if you know where the existing Waste Management office is, but basically it's behind that. It was, as far as I've seen, it's vacant. I don't know if it ever was previously something, but it's, I think we talked about Chris talked about the North Holding Pond over there in the industrial park. It's basically adjacent to that.
Mm-hmm. And so was there a development? I saw they came here for a development. I mean, did they build structures and structures? Did they
Yeah,
build structures?
it's currently, you know, I'd say close to being operational on that side, but yeah, they had a development order.
So just nothing's changing on the city side as far as, other than the good, we're not having to go over to Pensacola with it, and we're getting an increase in property value, is that correct?
I'm assuming it would be, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's gonna be I saw a $16,000,
Yes.
was the thing there, but if we're at some point, whether it's this year, the next year, or the next year,
Yeah.
and it's kind of one of those things like, good, we get to charge, more taxes, but then they're like, we're just gonna pass it on to the customer, so.
So the 16, I think the 16.
Or you can waive it.
Yeah, the 16,000 that I put in there is the difference in our, if you look at last year's budget and you look, between this year's budget, that's what that number is. But that doesn't reflect, because we're paying $90 a ton at this present moment, just to buy time that we have. So there's actually a substantial savings, but if you look at it between budgets, it was an increase.
Any other questions or comments from council? Ms. Mayor?
Just say it one more time, we're not gonna see a raise increase.
I mean, I can't guarantee that on that end. I will say this, with what this information and the prices that we have on there, it does not deviate off our rate schedule that we created 5 years at a time previously. So there's no change in what we thought it would be on that end.
These show up on the fee schedule, right? I mean, this coming up soon. I mean,
Yes.
It'll come up on the fee schedule.
Correct, yep.
Mr. Mead?
I'm ready to make a motion unless there's any public comments.
Well, I was going to ask if the gentleman from Waste Management wanted to speak.
Doug Rayner, Waste Management. Just real quick, we've really enjoyed working with your staff on the development of that project and your staff on the development of the agreement. I know Kim has looked through that as well. So it's just been a good experience. We have worked with Okaloosa County and the city of Niceville specifically. The only reason why the other cities aren't part of that is because they don't have a separate disposal agreement like the city of Niceville does in Okaloosa County. So any other cities that we work with, Destin, Mary Esther, Shalimar, Cinco Bayou, all of those rates that they pay us include their recycling fees already. So that's why you are the only ones in this area that would see that. But again, we just appreciate the opportunity. And Troy Vaughn is with Recycle America. I actually don't know much about recycling at all, but Troy does. If you had any specific questions, he could answer those. On the education component, we have a vested interest that you have a lot of recycling material and it's very clean. So we will develop a pretty robust education plan countywide, specific to each city that we work with and the county as a whole. But the material's all the same that we're bringing in, so nobody's going to say, oh, you can't bring this here from Destin, but you can bring something in from Fort Walton. So again, it's the education component is a huge piece of this that we'll work through as we start the audits and understand what the material looks like. But thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Doug, you were at the county previously, weren't you? The water department, were you there? Was that you?
Say it again?
Did you work for the county?
I did not.
Okay, thank you. I just thought so. Thought he had. I thought he worked for the county.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Are these bottle caps we can put in there? Because I've been putting bottle caps in my things right here.
Oh, plastic bottle caps?
Yeah. I can't put those in there anymore?
Now you can. There have been changes to the process, and so now caps are perfectly fine.
Okay, because I've been throwing
I know. And previously you were told to do that. We've done a really good job of confusing everyone. So we're now going to try and clear that up with some good, strong public education. And to answer your question about the building, it is a 45,000 square foot brand new building. It's one of the state-of-the-art burps, about $30 million investment, part of the $1 billion investment that WM's committed to recycling infrastructure between now and 2026. So to be here and to be here in this county, it's very, very beneficial to everyone along the Panhandle. We're going to go from Tallahassee to New Orleans to find material and make sure that all gets processed for us. So we appreciate you guys having us and taking consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor, I move we adopt the recycling services agreement with WM Recycling America LLC.
Second. It's been moved by Councilman Meade, seconded by Councilman Smith to adopt recycling services agreement with Waste Management Recycle America for our recycling services. Further comment?
Yes, if we are going to keep our rates down, then we do need that educational component, and I hope that everyone can work hard to educate all of us, including myself, who is probably unintentionally violating a rule or two. So I look forward to it, and that's how we keep our costs down, is having clean recycling going into the trash cans, the yellow lids.
Yes, sir. Mr. Smith, comment?
None from me, Mayor.
All right, council, please vote. Does pass 4-0. Thank you, council. Thank you, Waste Management.
Thank you.
All right, item 12.2, City Hall parking. Mr. Smith.
Actually, Mayor, I'll jump in real quick.
Oh, okay.
And then, turn over to Councilman Smith. But,
Okay.
As you know, we've been talking about the City Hall parking lot a few times over the last, maybe year. What we've done, and Councilman Smith and I've had many conversations on it. We've had some discussions with Premier Parking, who've gotten a recent bid in Destin, and the city is looking to piggyback off of that contract for the parking lot here at City Hall. But I asked Councilman Smith to have this on the agenda, so to see other council's input to see if we wanted to go forward with that before moving forward with an RFP.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, so, I mean, basic, simple background of this is I've had multiple people over at least the 4 years I've been coming down here, talking about the parking situation down here. When you go read it in the charter, it seems pretty clear that this parking lot at this City Hall is specific to the use of this property. Not to mention, I believe, when we looked at it further, we had some reverter clauses that were attached to the deed here. And we have, looks like it's been an ongoing problem for at least over 30 years at some point in time. We got a letter from the Liza Jackson family. We need to get it under control. We sat down and had a conversation with them. The issues that we're dealing with now, they have run into 30 years ago when the Landing Restaurant was over here. And all these commercial businesses were using the City Hall's parking lot for their private parking. So sitting down and having a conversation, I believe even Chris had to go put signs up here. He didn't have places for his employees to park because, all these businesses were taking over all their parking. And, trying to see what you can do to manage this parking lot. Basically the only thing that you can do, to keep the private businesses out of it is to have it manned. Well, that costs money, and manpower, which is, as the city going through the budget process, we never have enough money, we never have enough manpower. So we kind of floated the idea of maybe, taking the parking lot and using it as a paid parking lot. Got with the Liza Jackson family. They have some interest in hearing proposals about how that would work. And that has kind of led us to where we are today with, talking to some vendors like Premium Parking about what kind of services that they can offer that don't cost the city money and don't cost the city manpower. Is he here tonight?
Yeah, he's here tonight.
Oh,
Like to
okay.
ask him to come up and-
Yeah.
Questions that you may have.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to come up, have him come up here and kind of tell us how this whole thing works. And it looks like it's kind of taken off in Destin, and see where we can potentially give you guys some information and see where we go from here.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm either the heaviest guy in the room or I think the loudest chair. I apologize for that. And probably the heaviest. And I also recycle my bottle caps and I don't go out. So I appreciate that. Yes, Ben Wesley, Certified Administrator of Public Parking. That's a designation from the International Parking Mobility Institute. I've been in parking for about 13 years. Kind of backed into it when I lived in Hawaii, means doing it. So I've lived all over the nation. I've been parking in Hawaii, Miami, Nashville, Birmingham. I'm from Montgomery, but I live in Pensacola and my market's the Gulf Coast. So we're growing, we're excited to be here. It's an honor to talk about parking. It's an honor to work for Premium. Premium is owned by, it's a privately owned company out of New Orleans. We have over 1,000 locations. When I started in 2019, it was like 175. So we're rapidly growing. We're a unique parking operator because the technology is ours. And we kind of, started out with $15,000 investment in 2013 when apps were becoming popular, and now we've put $15 million into it. So when you go with Premium, you end up getting one throat to choke, basically. So, we're not pointing fingers at, the app's not working because some other company, and we're iterating based on what our clients' needs are. Your particular location is a fantastic, what we would call a flex lot. We kind of coined that term in terms of its primary use is for you in the city, but also it has, ancillary demand. And we believe that, people deserve great places, and that, parking shouldn't be overdeveloped. It should just be properly managed. So we're grateful to have that tool set. We've kind of built our model in a way that we become a parking department if you need it. We kind of, your job is in parking. We've tried to make that, a plug and play experience for our clients. Now, for some cities, they already have a department and they just need our technology. We can offer that as a service as well. But in this case, we see exactly what you mentioned, and we've proposed a revenue share model where we take care of all the CapEx up front, and we'll have a full-time parking ambassador. And we really feel like it's really important to mention up front that it's really not a parking trap. It's meant to be a service. Anyone who needs to park there, and it's public relations and everything. So the parking ambassador position will be, their number one goal would be to educate, and the number two goal, if they find someone who's not complying, then they could put a notice, and we would be deputized by the city as your parking code enforcement, and that revenue goes straight to the city. We don't take part in that. We're not incentivized to go out and, that's the way it's worked at best. So we would recommend that. And I may have missed something, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you right now. Yes, sir.
Do you need an app to use your meters?
Great question. So we are a completely gateless company. So, and I'll get to the answer, but I'm kind of laying the groundwork. When you're gateless, we can manage down to a particular stall. So it's all about the signage, which is nice because when you have a gate, every stall behind that gate is all the same. So we can manage this lot by zone or stall with a sign, and when they go to the sign, they have different ways to pay. They could download the app. It's a great app. They could camera pay. They could text pay. Camera pay is like a QR code. They could call the 1-800 number as well. And we also layer in pay machines. We would recommend not layering that in to begin, and just because there's an expense there. So we may want to just see how the parking, the nature of our clientele react to the signs. Maybe we're going to see not as much use of the parking lot as we did, which is a win because right now you're getting the parking lot wear and tear. But if we see high enough demand, we can layer in a pay machine later if we think that's necessary.
Since this is a civic use parking lot, the people that would actually be coming here to park, to come in here and actually use City Hall amenities, I guess that the intent is they're not to be charged because they're using the parking lot as intended. So tell me how that would work for them coming in here and using the facility like they're supposed to and not being charged.
Great question, and that's common to all of our locations. We're urban core, mixed use, many different clientele. So you're going to have your paid parker, you're going to have your validated parker. We have multiple validations, and so you could have what we call a validation self-service kiosk, where when I walk in tonight, I could have an iPad right there, and I just punch in my license plate, and it'll just, you can pre-populate it with, a time period. It could be 4 hours or whatever you want. You hit validate, and you're good to go. It's going to ask you, would you like to get a reminder, before your time expires? It'll send you a text, and you can re-up by paying for more, or go back to the validator and validate again. That's one way. If you have a VIP coming, you can send them basically a validated reservation. If you know their mobile number or their email, you can just send them a link, and they can upload their license plate for that particular time period in the future. And when they drive in, they're good to go, and they don't have to do anything on the lot. The other thing is your staff, you're going to want to give them subscriptions. So it's basically, they get a link, and you don't have to manage license plates. You just, our job is to teach you how the system works and to support you with the system. And they'll get an email with a link, and they click the link, and they can upload their license plate onto that subscription. You can have up to 3 license plates on a subscription. Only 1 license plate per subscription valid at a time in the zone. So you could, your significant other, the third car. And you can actually have more than 1 subscription underneath an email in case you have fleet vehicles and you just want 1 person managing a fleet of vehicles. You can do it that way.
So we have these ball fields back here. If we put a kiosk, I guess, in the customer service lounge, so if somebody's coming to pay a water bill or whatever else, they could use the kiosk, get validated. Once City Hall is closed and they're back here using these ball fields for recreational use, which is another approved use of the property, how do we prevent that overflow of them parking in this parking lot from being charged for using the property like they're supposed to? Is there a way in the app that if they know that, hey, games are from 5 to 7, they can turn the parking off from 5 to 7, or how do you manage that?
So I think one of those keys to the success of this operation is like, if it's City Hall Commission night, I'm not going to necessarily have, unless you want me to, I'm not going to be enforcing it strongly. If there's a game that night, I can back off enforcement at any time. So that's one way. Now the other way is to, now I'm kind of learning as I go here, but what you're saying is that the overflow, initially I thought we would kind of manage this front area. What you're saying is on game nights, they're gonna push into this area?
I mean, I know when I come here, during soccer season, there is 15,000 5-year-olds all over the place over here, and there is cars parked all over the place, as they should be.
Right.
And they're using the property for the intended use. So obviously, we don't want to penalize them for using the property as the intended use as it relates to our charter and our deed restrictions and stuff like that. So how do we prevent from them incurring any cost for coming in and using the property like they should? And I guess I'm a little confused at how you manage the front but don't manage the back, because if somebody drives in from the back, I mean, are you having a human body here 24/7, or are you using a camera to read license plates like I've seen at other places that you guys have?
Well, we do have that capability to use cameras, but they are about $10,000 a camera. So 10,000 an entry exit, so it adds up pretty quickly, and I wouldn't recommend that. So what works really well is to have a spot checking. You never want people to know when you're coming, and so I would hire a full-time person with a flexible schedule, and have them come at your prime moments, and you never have that set in stone. So people are like, and as far as where they come in isn't so important. It's really where the signs are. If that's the area that you want control of. And like I say, if they're coming into that area and we know there's a game going on, then maybe the idea is just to kind of hang loose on enforcement that way. the money's still gonna come in. But you just need those folks to know that, hey, like this lot is for them, they don't have to pay.
Okay.
Other questions? Mr. Mead.
Just some comments for planning down the road. Since it looks like there's a chance we could have a new city hall or something here on this property, and there's some potential revenue sources, not large, but nonetheless would help out the city. This would, in my opinion, would be a good idea to reach out to the Liza Jackson family to look into buying out the reverter. Probably be helpful with our financing because if the reverter would prime likely the any mortgage we would hope to put on the property. So I would think that number one, it'd be good to have the flexibility of the city owning the property outright without anyone telling us how to operate it. And number two, if we think we have a funding source to repay some of this, then
So the cost of the parking usage, the
Sure.
infrastructure.
Sure. So Mr. Smith found a great way to police and monetize it. Maybe this would be a good way to delve into releasing ourselves of the reverter. You can simply buy it. It's an interest in real estate they hold. So nothing to decide tonight, but I'd like if staff would be willing to have those conversations to see what price they would want for that reverter.
Mr. Walker.
Yeah, I can't remember, Jeff or Kim, did I send an email about getting a copy of the deed restrictions and the amendments? Did that go back and forth?
Yeah,
You did, and it's funny, I was gonna say, it's today, late in the day, I discovered that archived, I went over to archive, and I'm like, I swear there's messages over there I'm not archived, but I'm gonna be going through those, because I didn't remember seeing it, because that's an interesting topic, deed restrictions you mentioned, or that have come up, and the reverter clause, and we may not be in compliance with the amendments or deed restrictions. Is that fair to say that by, let's just say simply, the people across the street, whoever that may be, businesses are using the parking lot, and that's a violation of the terms of the deed restrictions? Is that kind of?
I believe it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. And that's fine. And so you said civic use, so I know that must be a key. You said civic, and then I went and looked it up. I'm like, well, what exactly does that mean? And it's of or relating to a town or city or the people who live in it. So it's like, so the people who live in it can use it, but not the people from out of state, or it gets all messy. I know. I like the reverter clause discussion anyway, just to find out what the heck is that we're talking about.
So years ago, without going into the details, the county purchased the rights from the reverter from the Meigs family. And that was an argument over whether or not the courthouse was still in Shalimar.
Sure.
And so it goes into a factual finding, a judicial factual finding of whether or not they were still performing court services. There were some court functions, was there enough, was there not enough? So I'm not suggesting that we're violating the reverters here, but what I'm suggesting is there's a chance to purchase them. And a conversation with the holder of that reverter, whether it's $100,000 or whether it's $100 million, what would be their price and what would be our ability to pay, just to free ourselves of those conversations.
Sure. And just in the for what it's worth category, when Travis first started speaking about it, and then he comes up here, and then I'm like, well, if there's an alleged problem, depends on who you ask, within all those documents, what does having someone provide parking services, how does that alleviate the alleged problem?
Well, we've had conversations with them, and it's not something that they have shot down outright right off the bat. They're willing to listen to what solutions that we can find, and if they're acceptable to them, I guess the idea is they wouldn't enforce their clause, I guess, at that point in time, or we could find that what we're going to do doesn't violate the clause. So, I mean, there's still a lot of steps that we got to go past this, but we've had the conversations. They haven't shot it down right off the bat, which is a good thing, which means they're open and willing to have discussions. And, you know, just to kind of come in and see what a deal would look like and kind of push us a little bit further down the road and say, hey, look, this is what a deal is going to look like. Is that still acceptable to you? And then we both kind of figure out where we go from there. It either is or it isn't. And then, you know, we got to react to it one way or another. And that's kind of how I see it going.
Sure, well then Mr. Mead mentioned the purchase of it, and it might be actually, I mean, yeah, release the reverter clause in exchange for the revenue for eternity, for splits, shares, or anything else. So there's no direct money coming from the city as far as out of the coffers. It's like we will give you parking services money for the rest of ever. Just, you know, it's just, that's if that's going to generate revenue, and if they are willing to release the reverter clause or sell it, whatever you want to do. And so yeah, you release it and you get the revenue from the parking lot. Just a thought. Just throwing it out there. Okay.
A lot of ways to work a deal.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Well, thank you for the efforts, and I think it's a great idea.
Keep moving forward.
Good discussion. We'll get some possible way forward.
Yes.
Any other?
Yeah, that was it really. We just wanted to see the rest of council's thoughts on it, and thanks for coming in. And I knew that you guys may have some questions on it. That's why we asked you to come in, and you'll see those pop up. They've got parking lots and nests and stuff, so we wanted to bring it in front of council tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Smith?
No, that actually brings up a lot more questions in my head that I can kind of follow back on with Jeff and Kim and see where we go. Your mind is like a hamster wheel when you're a car dealer of trying to find a way to put a deal together. So everything that you just brought to me, I'm sitting in here and the wheels are just running a million miles an hour. So.
And really, we were just looking for clarification. I had a motion just to staff to move forward with bringing information back in parking plan.
All right. Do you need a motion to have
Yes,
more
yes.
information? Okay. Anyone care to make a motion?
You're talking about in a general sense, not in a specific sense. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to bring us further information regarding parking at City Hall, to include potentially a purchase of the reverter clause, I guess.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Smith, second by Councilman Meade, to direct staff to provide further information, including on parking at City Hall, including looking into the possibilities of the reverter, looking into the reverter clause. Anything else? Anything else? Council, please vote. Does pass unanimously. Thank you, Council. That'll bring us to item 12.3, golf view upgrades. Mr. Berry.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Little did you know, Jeff, whenever I asked you if volunteers from United Way get together to clean up the Gulf View Motel, that it was the first time I had ventured into the Gulf View Motel. And my eyes, as a nurse, looking at the whole, this is not ADA. Where's the elevator? Where's this? And my knees, my arthritis in my knees, we worked hard. I slept good that night. Anyway, bottom line, I started looking at this, and then I met with Mr. Bethea, Mark Bethea, and then we got really into it more, so he started educating on me about what has and what doesn't happen, what we can do. And I thought, well, this is going to be a good project for Ms. Wilson and the CRA, or whatever else we can do. And then Kate and I got together, Ms. Donahue, who happens to be the aide to Congressman Manning, and so it rolled. And I think for a good reason it rolled. This Gulf View Motel is a historic landmark. We bought it, planted it there, we're utilizing it, but let's do it right. So what I'm asking is that we painted with the kind of paint that we're supposed to paint, not just what we found out was not conducive for the heavy traffic there. And also the elevator, we found out, now that Mr. Bay come in and talk to us a little bit more about that, is not an elevator like up and down for people, but a lift elevator and many other things. So what I'm wanting us to do is discuss what we can do to improve the Gulfview Hotel and bring it to where it should be, a landmark, and find some good funding for it. I love grants, and we have a tenant there that can maybe help us get some more grant money. You know, so, Mr. Bay, would you like to come? Sure.
Thank you, Councilman Berry. Thank you, Council. Let's talk about the painting first. It was painted with a flat paint, the exterior of the building. And with the traffic there, and the building being so close to the highway, it just basically soaks up the grime. So I pressure wash it, and you really can't pressure wash it. That's the problem. You have to, as Kate and Councilman DeBerry can tell you, you have to scrub it. So you literally have to go up there with a scrub brush and wash it down. The solution to that is to paint it with a satin or a paint that has a finish on it, so you can pressure wash it. And it would make the building a lot cleaner and look a lot better from the exterior. Under Mr. Peters' direction, I got 2 estimates to paint the exterior. It needs to be painted anyway, it's time. But I got 2 estimates, one for $12,000 and some change, and another one for $9,750. I don't know where that money comes from. And just to give you a little history, when Realty House was hired to manage the property, this city manager basically gave us directions to rent out several of the smaller offices. There's a total of 9 offices that we rent. And the goal was the revenue that was generated from those offices would pay for the operation of the building, lights, water and sewer, janitorial, the toilet paper, the pressure washing, the general maintenance and upkeep of the building. The city, or the CRA, takes care of any capital expenditures. We repaired like an air conditioner. We do the maintenance and repair, but if an air conditioner was ever to fail, there wouldn't be enough revenue from the rent to offset the cost of an air conditioner. Well, we launched into that, and I looked back before I came to the meeting. We have accomplished that, and we have sent the city in excess of $20,000 a year over and above those operating costs. So those dollars, for the last 5 years, should exceed over $100,000. So we achieved that. So tonight, what I would like to ask is, and I don't know where the money comes from, but could we paint the building?
It would be in a CRA fund balance, absolutely. It actually falls within, the city manager spending authority, but obviously we want to bring it to council. It's a big project downtown, and that's something that can be done out of CRA fund balance.
Can you tell me how much revenue that generates for the city on a yearly basis?
Well, after expenses, it's $20,000 that we've sent, a little over $20,000 each year that we've sent the city.
So it's $20,000 net is what we're getting a year.
Yes, sir.
Where's that money going?
It goes in the CRA.
Yeah, it's a revenue for CRA fund.
I don't know that includes the money that the city is expending on the property, though.
That's correct.
Such as fencing around the air conditioning units or any other capital improvements that the city does.
Mr. Walker.
That seems very cheap on the painting. I've gotten paint bids lately, so I want to get their contact information. But also, the quality of paint I've experienced, when it may be right, it may not be there, because I was trying to picture it in my head, but elastomeric paint, which is you know, a lot more expensive for material, but it's impervious to water penetration. And, you know, I don't know if, have you ever used, yeah, I mean, it's an excellent, and there may be other brands of it, but, you know, what paint was used in that $12,000 and $10,000 estimate?
Yeah, the 10,000 was Sherwin-Williams. The 12,000, Jeff, do you have that bid? I don't recall. But it did state it was not Sherwin-Williams, but it was a high-quality paint.
Elastomerica's like rubber. Elastomerica's like
That's
rubber.
correct.
I mean, I built a house and put it on there, and 10 years later, it was just like it. I mean, and it was really close to the water. So I love it. I know it's more expensive to buy, you know, up front, but the maintenance of it long term, talk about durability, it is extremely durable. So don't know if that's even an option to, you know, check with those painter companies to say, hey, can you get, how much more would it cost for? And if people are open to elastomeric, if they determine it's an appropriate application, because sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. I don't know, but it's great paint.
Elastomeric is great paint for stucco or brick. This is wood, so you might want to shy away from
Gotcha.
Elastomeric.
Gotcha.
The higher price estimate sounded more what we need. The other,
I mean,
yeah, I don't know anything about paint.
Yeah, it's a speed-dyed exterior satin acrylic.
Yeah.
100% acrylic exterior paint design for durability. That's what's in.
But both of them are bid in a satin paint.
25, 30-year exterior paint, is that what they showed you? I haven't, those aren't included in here, are they?
Councilman
I don't
Walker,
care what
we
it says, it ain't gonna last
We just
that
got
long.
it.
Okay, it's okay. I just didn't know if it shows on there if it's a, you know, 10-year exterior or 25-year or what. Don't know. Gotcha.
That Florida Sun says it's about 4 years.
Oh, well, yeah.
Hi, I'm Kate Tahani. I'm the district aide for Representative Maney. I've only been working with him for like a month and a half, but I was volunteering with him for at least a year before. I have a long history with the Gulfview because I worked with Perry Lord at Main Street when the Gulfview Hotel was over behind Staffs. And they originally did all the renovation work, so I kind of have a love for it. But when I go upstairs outside and run my hand along the handrail, and it's full of soot, right? And even after we scrubbed it, because we were out there, this is just a couple of weeks later, and it's doing it again. So it really is true that it needs to have a different kind of finish on it. I think it's a great place that we've restored for the city, right? Because we don't have that many historic buildings. And I really do want to see it being used in the way that I think you all intended it for it to be. So I love having our offices down there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
And she's a pleasure to work with.
I said, Mark, I'm your new best friend.
Yes, Mr. Berry.
In addition to the paint, there's the major cost that we're going to talk about is the elevator, the lift elevator. And there's been a lot of discussion back and forth with you doing some researching and me educating myself on lift elevator versus, and I can just think of the old hotel over at Wakulla Lodge that has the little bitty elevator. And we found out we don't have to dig a hole down into stuff. So can you talk about that, please, Mr. Bethea?
Sure. Now the elevator or lift, whatever you want to call it, is a little different and more of a challenge. What you are probably aware of in an elevator is where you walk in and you press a button and you say which floor you want to go to and it goes. In addition to that, you're also probably accustomed to walking into an elevator that has an enclosed cab. This elevator, if you walk into it, first it's very cumbersome to get into. You need an instruction manual. When you get into it, you have to keep your finger on the button for it to raise to the second floor. Also to come down. And then the lift, the cart has to be level with the floor for that door to open. So if you don't get it right to that level, the door doesn't open. Not to mention, we've had numerous problems. We've gone through 4 different elevator companies over 5 years. 3 that I worked with, 1 the city worked with, before we basically just shut the elevator down. Because we were, every 3 weeks, somebody was getting stuck in the elevator or the lift. But this elevator, when you walk into it, it's not an enclosed cab. It's just it's kind of to your hip, and the enclosure is like about hip high, so you can run your hand up the elevator shaft as you go up. It scared me to death. I can imagine some kid getting in there and getting hurt. So I did research. When the city put it in there, I was told by National Elevator that they had told the city it wouldn't work, and that it's not the right type of system to go into that building. I wasn't part of the decision, but that's the baby that we have, and that's what we're dealing with. I have, along with the former facilities guy with the city, we just got after working on it, trying to get the thing to work, we just shut it down. So that's where we're at. I've met with Cavender Elevator again, based on your recommendation. They said that they could work on it again. I said, what would you do differently? Because they're one of the companies that we hired and worked on it for about a year. What would you do differently? Because he recommended to service it again. And while he was there, it failed multiple times. Got stuck between the 2 floors. When you got to the 2nd floor, he couldn't get the door open. He said, I know how to get it open, so he got in, he jumped up and down, and the door opened. It doesn't work. But I said, what would you do different? And all he could offer me was it would be just another set of eyes. And I said, well, what would it take to get new equipment into here? Get a real elevator in here. And I'm working on getting a price right now. So that's where we're at.
Do you access it from outside the building?
No, inside.
You have to come up the front stairs. Is there a ramp? Yeah, there is a ramp down there on
There's
one
a
side.
handicap.
That's right, I forgot about that. And then you come in the front doors and it's somewhere in there. I've been in there a couple of times, but I just hadn't noticed it.
Yeah, it's in the main lobby.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Bethea, I went out to the Wakulla Lodge. It was built in 1932 there. They have a little bitty elevator. It reminds me of the European elevators sort of thing.
I've been there.
Yeah, okay. There was no one there that could talk to me about that elevator, but could you research something like that,
Yeah, that elevator has a shaft, and we don't want to go that direction, but what we're looking at is what's called a limited use elevator, and it doesn't require a shaft, and I'm just waiting on getting a
Well, we're
price.
also thinking like ADA people that cannot, I know it's only 2 stories, but it's still difficult if someone needs to go upstairs,
Yeah, it is. Now, just so you know, I don't know if everybody's been in the building. We do have a very nice conference room on the 1st floor that's available. So if somebody cannot go up those steps, that they have access to use that conference room that is ADA accessible.
Yes, sir. The elevator was added. The elevator was never a part of that original building. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So when we moved this building, it went way above budget.
I remember watching the council meeting where you guys approved it.
We approved it, and then the budget kept going, and then kept going, and then once we were part of it, we couldn't.
First loss is your best loss, is what we say in the car business.
But this had nothing to do with Realty House.
No.
But that's what happened.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Once I found out how much it cost, I said, you could have went in there and had a draftsman copy it, and you could have built it from the ground up with brand new studs over here for a fifth of the price.
But it would have complied with ADA and had an elevator.
Correct.
But it didn't, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I'll entertain a new elevator price, but my fear is that doing it the right way would be absolutely cost prohibitive.
Well, I'll entertain a new elevator price if the Chamber of Commerce pays for it.
There you go. Well, there you go. I like that.
They're the ones that champion that program. You know, they were coming in and saying that they were going to give all this money, and I don't believe they gave as much as they originally said that they could come up with. I think they came up with 50 grand or something like that. And I thought they could give more, so it sounds like we maybe give Ted a phone call and tell him his pet project needs some help and see if he can go round up some money for it.
And Mr. Mead, I agree with you. I know the direction you're headed. What I'm here today with Mrs. DeBerry's help is just to let you know the situation. However you want to handle it. What I want is direction to say, hey, it's okay, Realty House, to keep that system off. Or, no, it's not okay. We'll go with, however you pay for it, we'll go with the option of putting in this limited use elevator.
Did I read in an email or some backup information that that elevator is not included in the lease property, or it's not included with the leases with the individual tenants? I guess my question is when I go and lease a building and it's got a working elevator, my assumption is that I got a working elevator. So are these
Mr. Smith, I
tenants?
tell everybody, don't go in the thing.
Well, I know what you tell them, but what you tell them and what the contract says are two different
Yeah,
things.
it does not say in the contract that that's, no, nothing about the elevator.
Okay.
I warn people against, I won't go in there myself. Because I know I'm going to get stuck.
You know you're going to get stuck.
The elevator guy got stuck 3 times in less than an hour.
May I suggest we do this in 2 phases? We've got the paint issue, and I believe there's revenue to take care of that. But
Yes,
then we need estimates on what a proper lift might be, and then we could either research grant funding or go to the chamber or look for alternate sources of funding. I think we have 2 issues on the.
Mark, is it a requirement to have a working elevator in there?
You're beyond my scope.
We'll get that information and the quotes, everything, bring it back. We'll find out.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'd just like to say something again. Being a public service representative, Maney, going up and down the stairs, even for him to meet people, isn't necessarily inviting. He's like 76 now. And he really feels like his offices should be available and ADA compliant. So that's, the other side of it. Whether or not that's a legal issue, I'm not sure. And whether there might be some other funding, like you were saying, grant-wise, for something like that would be worth investigating too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to discuss this? Council, may we get a motion or one of 2 motions, or however you want to proceed?
Okay, I'll need some help on this. So, I'd like to make a motion that we paint the Gulfview Hotel now with the funds that we have with the appropriate kind of paint. That even if we have to pay more, let's do it right. But otherwise, we're going to come back over here in 2 years and have to do it. And I don't want to scrub that thing again. I'm not kidding you. Even with gloves on, my hands were, because we use heavy-duty stuff. And also the windows, we were power, and water was leaking through the windows as we went. And we were trying not to. But anyway, make a motion. Don't get that back. The paint. I make a motion on the paint.
I'll second our motion that we repaint the Gulfview Hotel, and it'll run through our property manager, Realty House.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been moved by Mr. Berry, seconded by Councilman Meade, to paint the Gulfview Hotel using Ms. Bethea and Realty House. Further discussion?
I would like to discuss it just a minute. maybe even amending it, I'm not sure how that goes, but the quality of the paint's really important. So not having seen them, trusting that you will see them or look at them. Sometimes, if it's a bid out, and I don't know who bid it, don't care who bid it, but if they think they can get it, get the bid by using less quality paint, Sherwin-Williams is clearly not, but I still don't know if there's if they're using an 8-year paint and for another $1,000 we can get a 20-year paint, that would be a consideration that I'd like for us or you to have to, I know, like you said, it's within your spending guidelines, so you got staff look at and make what they believe is the best decision on the paint quality.
We'll develop a scope between Mark and myself and we'll make it right. We'll do it right.
Can I interject something?
Sure.
I totally agree with you. That's why on Open Heaven's bid, I had him separate the cost of the paint.
Okay.
Because if I wanted to step in and change the paint, then I could eat that cost with city's guidance to get to the paint I want to be at.
Gotcha.
So in his bid, he has a line item for the cost of the paint.
Gotcha.
And just for assurance.
It's an allowance.
I've
Gotcha.
only been doing this for 42 years. And I've managed Forum Square, Uptown Station, Paradise Village.
20, how many years?
I've done over 1,000
How many
leases.
years? 20, how many?
42 years.
42.
So
I said 22.
I painted a lot of buildings, so
Oh, you've been doing it longer than that.
thank you for your confidence.
Thank you. So we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote. Does pass 4-0. Thank you, Council. Now, item of the elevator.
Yeah, I'm not finished. Now, help me with the elevator. How do I make this motion say, I want you to research it and make it compliant for ADA?
Yeah, I have no idea how much it'll cost. I need to come back.
We'll get quotes and do some research in it and bring it back to you at the next meeting at least so we have a ballpark cost of what we're looking at. And ADA compliance issues and everything.
Because even, yes. So how do I say that?
Well, we probably don't need a motion. If they'll bring it back to us with an action item, so.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, I want to point out, I mean,
Sir.
Mrs. DeBerry and Kate and her group, they spent a whole day there cleaning up this building, and I very much appreciate it, and I know the citizens appreciate it. And again, thank you.
I'll pass that on to the volunteers that work with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 13, city manager reports. Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as you all are probably aware, we've got a CRA meeting on Tuesday, our next meeting, which will be June 11th at 4:30 p.m., followed by a regular council meeting at 6 p.m. that night on June 11th. We also have the 25th of June, we have that code enforcement meeting at a workshop at 4 o'clock, and followed by the regular meeting at 6 o'clock, where we will set the proposed millage rate at 6 o'clock in the council meeting to follow that. I would like to point out that across behind the library, the mural is filling up. It's on the third panel. Councilman, fourth panel.
I saw the fourth one today.
Fourth one.
I thought, man, she's zipping along.
And I've seen pictures floating around on social media of people taking pictures, holding the fishing pole and standing by the sign and everything. So it's turning out really, really nice. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kopp.
I don't have anything tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. We'll go around. Last comments from council. Mr. Mead.
Nothing further this evening.
Okay. Mr. Smith.
I got an email, obviously, from all the events that were put on this past weekend through the end of the week. I had some family matters that I had to attend to, so I wasn't able to pretty much attend anything this past weekend, but I know Chief Beige was very complimentary of our staff, and even though I didn't get there to experience it myself, I want to thank them for doing a good job and, putting everything together the way they did. And my understanding is everything ran about as smooth as it's ever run before. So I appreciate them getting that done, and I want to give them their attaboy and pat them on the back and say good job.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walker?
Ditto Travis's comments. Old school there. I do have a couple of questions. Let's get to them. Nicole's not here, but Jeff, I'm assuming you can give us an update on that financial software. Is it active? I know the last time we met it was close, 98% or something.
Yeah, it's up and running. It's on the website, and it's got some directions and check your archive folder.
Yeah, okay.
But it's in there from the
And I was
call, and
doing-
kind of step by step, go through it. You can click on any account,
Awesome.
everything is pretty cool.
Awesome, thank you. Kim, Ms. Barnes, we've been in this, I've been in it a little over a year, so I've taken some time to reflect back on some important matters prior to coming into office. And one of those things was as I was a citizen, I asked for an investigation of the grease trap inspection over at Fort Walton Beach Skate Center. And at that time, it was a little comical that it was, quote, investigated, the city investigated itself and found nothing wrong. So I'll just like to make a public request that you send to me, either by email or at the next meeting, all communications, internal and external, related to the investigation that was done there, and to include all the way up to the final report. I mean, Mr. Beatty made a report that day and again found nothing wrong, but I'd like to see the internal communications between any of the departments with Mr. Beatty at my request of an investigation. So is that, any questions? Okay, thank you. And Mr. Mayor, on the gentleman that you said was from the Emerald Coast Regional Council, that he wasn't able to be here. I reviewed the minutes and the discussion that went on then. Would we be able to get him here just as an informational presentation? You said at the last meeting that he would be.
I'm certain we can get him here at another meeting.
Great, thank you. If you
And
could
I think very interesting to note, I learned this at my last MPOAC meeting, that the state of Florida is unique among, not among all 50 states, but we're in the minority of the states. We build all transportation budgets from the local level up. So there's federal dollars that come into the state. Most states, the majority of the states, take federal dollars, and at the state level, they push them down. The state of Florida does it the opposite. They start at the community level, figure out where's the most need, who is most interested in making their projects work, get that input, then it goes to the county level, then it goes to the district level, then it finally goes to the state for funding. So we're unique in the approach. We, Florida, are unique in our approach to the way we fund transportation projects. I just learned that 2 or 3 weeks ago at an MPOAC meeting. So.
Nice, yeah, and I just want that opportunity to educate myself on some of the presentations that were put in there. So would love to.
I will invite him to the next meeting.
Great, thank you so much. And then lastly, Jeff, we had a discussion about the policy and procedures manual and discussion. Have you thought any more about that since then, and have you come up with any?
We've developed one and have a meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock.
You've developed a policy and procedures manual?
Correct.
Manual.
Not a manual, a rental policy.
A rental policy that'll be publicly shared? And, okay, great. Oh, and I did notice on the, I had said it, and I think I might have given them to you, I'm not sure, but I was going to enter an email into the record related to that subject. It's okay. I had said I was going to do it, and I don't know if I gave it to you or if I held it or whatever else, but I didn't get them to you to enter into the record on those minutes. I didn't see them there. So I've got that email I'll enter. And also, just because he took the time to do it, Major Oser, I'm going to enter, also, he has provided a timely record down to the minute of communications and problems. And so as you're putting that policy and procedures manual, you can look and see how, someone on the outside trying to get a field over there, the problems they experienced with just being shuffled back and forth between staff and not really knowing where to go. So this kind of outlines it. So I'll enter that email. I'll leave, when I say enter, should I give it to you, Ms. Barnes, for that? So I'll do that. And you want to say something? Do you have a question? Okay. So I'll do that, and then I've got the email. I'll get it to you after the meeting, and then you can just put it in the records for public to review if necessary. I guess the final and last one, and this is from an old budget schedule. May was listed as the department budget submissions. Is that going on currently, or are they already in?
They've been submitted.
They've
been submitted. Our budget meetings start Thursday and are all next week with each department.
Yeah, and I've had the pleasure to join other large firms and organizations and their budgeting process, from a president, vice president, CFO, CEO, boards, and all of that. And so when I have those experiences, and then I come here and we're kind of the board, and you're the CEO, and then obviously you've got your staff that's presenting to you and all. And I don't know how if and when we can get a bird's eye view of those meetings. I know that when I know what goes on inside those meetings and listen to the pain points of any of the department heads, whatever it is, it helps us up here. So are those staff meetings, and it's described in here as, very vigorous meeting and all that kind of stuff. Is that something that can be videoed for us to watch? Minutes taken?
No, not individual staff meetings.
No, this was a budget meeting described. Let me get to it here. This is. The committee conducts so do we still have a committee, a budget committee?
We've got a budget, the review committee, if that's what it's called.
Maybe it's on page 18, but in order to accomplish this goal, a budget committee is formed, comprised of the city manager, finance director, budget and grants analyst. The committee conducts comprehensive meetings with the department directors to review their budget request, and a collaborative effort is undertaken to achieve city council and department goals. So, when I'm shorted, cheated, when we are shorted or cheated of that information that's going on, to include maybe initial budget requests to you, because that's where they come to, right? When a director, Mr. Payne, he's got his budget request, I'm assuming. He's going to present that to you, and you're going to look at it and know all the other departments and what they've got going on, and go, look, that might be a little high, that might be, whatever those things are. I just feel that as a council, with that being pretty much one of our primary, if not the primary role up here, is, being very well aware and call it control if you want to. We control the budget, and to not have access to what you guys are considering, talking about, planning, would like to do, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how I can get it. I don't know how we can get it, but I would sure like to either have minutes, summaries, video access to it. That prevents us from giving input during the meeting, but it's like Mr. Payne and Jeff and the CFO, everybody met, and here's what they talked about. It's a public meeting because it is dealing with leading up to what we're going to be doing soon, talking about the budget and millage rate and all that.
So the way it works is you all have hired me to be the city manager and develop a budget for the city, for you all to approve. So the department directors do their work with their staff and their supervisors, and they get that information to me. And the finance director and myself get everything together and go back and forth and say, hey, this looks good, this with our staff. We come to council at the last meeting in June, in which you would set the tentative millage rate. You can't go higher after that. You can always go lower, whichever you may choose. That gives us some guidance to say, okay, here's what kind of funding we're working with. That gives us a chance to get all the revenue predictions that we feel
are going to be for next year. We work on it all through the month of July, and we come to you guys for a long council workshop in August where each department director presents their budget to you all. City manager, whoever may be sitting here 40, 50 years ago or 40, 50 years in the future would come up and present the budget to you all as a council, and you say, hey, it's great, or hey, you need to go back to work. So that's the way it works. So I need time to get all the information from the directors to be able to get it to you. And that's what you guys have hired me to do, is to get the budget to you in the form that you can look at and say, hey, this looks great, or hey, you need to do some more work, or hey, you need to add something to it.
Sure.
Our job, Mr. Walker, our job is to set policy and set priorities. And then we let the staff do what they do, and then we get to see it all, and we make the final. We can adjust as necessary. But
Yeah,
we're not part of making the stew. That's the.
You're not part of what?
Making the stew. We don't watch them grind the meat. We just,
Sure, and I think Travis said it might be, depends on who you ask, where that fine line is, but, with that in mind, Jeff, with tonight's amendment on the budget, it draws me back to one of the first budget discussions I remember having in here, because I was trying to figure out how the clock worked. And so I went and looked at the roles and responsibilities that were listed on the budget process. And the budget process begins in January with the finance director and budgets and grants and analysis, developing a 5-year financial forecast, which I've never seen one of those, for the general and enterprise funds, including best, likely, and worst case scenarios. So I know this year, in good CEOing practices, for lack of better words, we need to see 2 budgets, right? One with the budget amendment that passes on the ballot, and one that doesn't pass on the budget ballot. So you're going to be applying the charter amendment, because if that passes, that's what we're going to be operating under, right?
Well, our plan is as a staff will be to present council with a budget and the workshops and discuss it with you all. And then you all will give us some direction of moving forward to the actual approval in September. The charter amendment goes on in November. That will be council's decision how you would want to move forward with the budget. But the staff will present the budget the best that me as a city manager feels to present to council, and the city council can look at it and tell us to start over or what it may do with a majority vote. So that's what the plan is, and will always be.
And we could provide direction to staff, you and to your staff, that we want to apply the principles that are in the charter amendment, correct? I mean, we could say, Jeff, take this as it's written and apply it to this year's budget that you're getting ready to propose.
We could do that every year.
Right.
You could have done that for the last, you could do that every year. You could
Sure.
say, we want you to go with these guidelines if you have 4 votes.
Sure, yeah, I got you. Okay, well, I think, we're raising your hand. I think that's all I've got. Let me double check. Yep. I'll get you these emails, Ms. Barnes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Berry, you're last.
I think I said it.
Which one?
Yeah, I said it.
All right. I got one last reminder. Veterans Day is celebrating on Monday, the 27th, 11 o'clock, Beale Memorial Cemetery. It's always a very meaningful service, and I encourage each and every one of you to come out if you can. And with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.